Okay, chapter 4. Chapter 4 is tissue level. So remember we started from the molecule, the chemical level. We went up to the organelles and then to the whole cell. And now tissues. What will be the next level after the tissues? Organs, yes, which is the next part. So tissue. When you put cells together, as we mentioned in the very, very beginning, when you put cells together, collection of cells that perform a specific limited function together, that will make tissues. And we have different types of tissues, depending on the cells and other things. The tissues can be epithelial. Epithelial means covered, exposed surfaces. So is it covering or lining, or the exception is glands? What do you mean covering or lining? What's the difference between covering and lining? Both of them are basically the same. Covering, like skin, it covers from outside. Lining is from inside, right? So like this, if you look at this is covering and this is lining, right? So both of them are exposed, both of them on the surface. Which surface? If it is outside, you call it covering, like the skin. If it is inside, like the inside lining of your esophagus, your stomach, your intestine, and so on. So this is epithelial cells. There is an exception here. So covering or lining, that's one. Plus, in certain locations, the cells will come together to make a gland, like this. If this is covering or lining? Lining. How about this? Covering. How about this? This is something special. Look. They come together and they make secretions. And the secretion will go in a duct. And this is called glandular. It is still type of epithelium, specialized. So the normal epithelium is cover or line. Glands are a special type. Second type is connective, and the name gave it away. Connective, connection. It makes connection between cells. So it's filling the spaces and supporting other cells. Connective, okay, connective. We will have a lot of details to talk about this, but this is just an introduction. The next will be muscle. Of course, it's contraction, and we have different types of muscles. The first type is, and we have a lot of details about this, but the first type is skeletal muscles. Skeleton is coming from bones. Skeleton, yes. Skeletal is coming from skeleton. Skeletal attached to the skeleton. Is it voluntary or involuntary? Voluntary. Contract your muscles. Biceps, for example. Can you contract? Relax. Can you control it? Yeah. Voluntary. Okay. The next type is special muscles in the heart, cardiac muscles or heart muscles. Is it voluntary or involuntary? Involuntary. If it is voluntary, stop your heart. Contract your heart. Speed up.
Well,
can you?
I can run and speed up the contractions, but I can't really say, hey, let's go, heart. You're going to speed up right now. I would have to run.
Yes. So, and this is not you. This is not you. When I say voluntary or you means you think about it, you decide, and you do it. Okay? What you're saying, if you're exercising or something, you didn't think about it. It goes without saying, right?
It was involuntary.
Yeah, that's true. So it is involuntary, and if you're sleeping, does it stop?
No.
No. So it is involuntary. And then the third type is called smooth muscles, which is in the hollow organs. What are the hollow organs? Like what? Is the intestine hollow? What's hollow means?
Nothing inside of it.
Yeah, hollow like this. Contain a cavity inside. So like stomach, esophagus, yes, intestine, anything that's hollow. So these muscles are called smooth muscles. Is it voluntary or involuntary?
Involuntary.
It's involuntary. Otherwise, contract your stomach. Contract your intestine. Stop your intestine. Can you do that? It's involuntary. So what's the only muscles that are voluntary? Skeletal muscles. Skeletal muscles, okay. And there are other differences that we will talk about later on. The fourth type is neural tissue. This is the nervous system, the neurons, and this is to transmit electrical signal. It take the signal from part, transmit it to the next part, and so on. So this is the neural tissue. And here is the rule of the thumb. You will be confused with the connective tissue. I will ask you, what type of tissue is this? And you will be confused. Here is your basics, the bottom line. Ask yourself, anytime I ask you about any tissue, ask yourself, is it covering or lining? Like, is it skin or lining inside? If no, is it muscle? Does it contract? No. Is it nervous tissue? Does it transmit something? No. Anything else will be connective. So if I ask you, bone, is the bone covering or lining? Is it like skin outside covering or lining from inside? No. Is it muscle? Does it contract? Does your bone contract? No. Is it a nervous system? So what's the bone?
Connective tissue.
Connective tissue. How about the cartilage? Apply the same. Is it any of those? Any of the three? Connective tissue. How about the blood? Connective tissue, right? This is how it goes. Anytime you see tissues and you're not, if it's muscle, it's muscle. Nervous system, it's nervous system. Very clear. Covering or lining, it's epithelial. Anything else will be connective tissue. Okay? So it goes without saying. So the first type, which is epithelia, it can be covering or lining. If it is covering or lining, you call it epithelia. And this is the real epithelium, covering or lining. If it is arranged in the gland, this is something else. You call it glandular epithelium, a special type. Why do we have the epithelium for? A lot of things. Why do you have the skin? For example, protect you, right? It's a cover that protects you. Permeability, like the capillaries. The capillaries will permit certain things to go through and will stop others from going through. Sensation, like your skin, when somebody touch you or something painful or something like that, you pick up the signal. And the third type is glands. Why do we have glands? For secretion. Now the classification of epithelium. We will have two ways to classify. Understand this. And I will ask you about it. So understand it. Okay? How to know what type of epithelium. It's not enough to say this is epithelium. Yes, what type of epithelium? What are your factors that you use to tell the different types that we will talk about? Number one, how does it look like? How the cells, the outermost cells. Does it look like this? Flat, squamed cells? You call it squamous. Does it look like a cube? You call it cuboidal. Does it look like a column? You call it columnar. And we're talking about the outermost. Meaning, look at this. What type of cell is this? Cuboidal. Oid, anytime you see oid means similar to. Cuboidal, cuboid, similar to cube. This is cuboidal. How about this? I'll put this on the surface. What is this? Squamous. How about this tissue? Group of cells. Is it squamous or is it cuboidal?
Neither.
No, the name comes from the outermost.
Oh.
Okay? So you call this squamous, irrespective of what's underneath. You can have different types of cells. The most important thing, if all the cells are the same, that's fine. If not, the outermost. This is what gave you the name. So this is for the shape. So thin, flat will be squamous, square-like, or looks like a cube, cuboidal, looks like a column, tall and cylinder, you call it columnar. Number two, is it like this? What type of cell is this?
Simple.
Cuboid.
This.
No, never mind.
Squamous.
Squamous.
Squamous. This is group of cells. So this is tissue now, right? What kind of tissue? Squamous. How about this?
Layers.
Stratified?
Stratified. What? This is tissue. This is tissue. Group of cell. Group of cell. Squamous. Squamous. But this is one layer, and this is multiple layers. So this is the second thing. So the second parameter is how many layers. Is it one or more? Anything that's more, you call it stratified. And understand it. Stratified means in strata. What's a strata? Strata, translation, layer. Stratified means it's arranged in layers. So is it simple? This is called simple. And this is called stratified. Stratified means you put it in strata. Strata means layer. So anytime I ask you about a tissue, first step is what type of cells on the surface? Cuboidal, squamous, columnar. Number two, how many layers? So you say, what do you call this?
Squamous. Simple squamous.
Simple squamous. How about this?
Stratified squamous.
Stratified squamous. How about this?
Stratified squamous.
Yes, stratified squamous. Remember the name come from
Top layer.
the top layers, not everything. If you see mix, it's the top. Okay? So what are these all? What is this?
Squamous. Simple
No,
squamous.
the full name. Simple squamous. What is this?
Simple.
Cuboid L. Cuboid. Looks like a cube. Cuboid. Cuboid. Cuboid L. Cuboidal. And what is this? Columnar. So this is the full name, right? How about this?
Stratified squamous. Stratified cuboidal. Stratified columnar.
Columnar. But did you notice that these are cuboidal? Did you notice that?
But that's not the outer layer.
Yes. So it is all about the outer layer. In this, all cells are cuboidal. Yeah, that's fine. How about this? This is squamous, right? How about this?
That's cuboidal.
Cuboidal, irrespective. You call it with the top layer. Okay? So it can be simple, it can be stratified. Only for columnar, we have an exception here. Okay? So the rule applies for everything with one exception. Columnar. Columnar, we found out that it can be like this. And other cells underneath, what do you call this?
Single column.
Is it single?
No.
Stratified
Stratified what?
Column.
Stratified columnar, right? How about this?
That's.
Is it one layer or more?
It's one.
It looks like one, and some of you say it's more, right? It's one, but it is squeezed. So some of them goes up and some of them goes down. It gives you a false impression that this is stratified. So the name come now is pseudo-stratified. Pseudo means false. It's not stratified. Okay? Practically speaking, it's one cell after one cell after one cell after one cell. It's one layer. But because the way it looks like, it was squeezed, pushed together. So when you push something together, some goes up a little bit and down a little bit, giving you a false impression that it is stratified. It's not stratified, but it doesn't look like simple. So how to solve this problem? Let's call it pseudo-stratified. And pseudo means false. Okay? This is a pseudo-stratified, okay, but it has a cilia. Okay, so this is another thing about the columnar cells to know. They have cilia. They have these hair-like projections, and when you have these hair-like projections that are called cilia, you need to remember where is it located. It has a specific function. Those that have, not all of them have cilia. Those that have cilia will have a specific function. So it's located in certain parts to do the specific function. What are these parts? It's in the nasal cavity, trachea, bronchi, and part of the reproductive system, and you need to remember this. When I ask you where are the ciliated type of cloud, pseudostratified. So we call it pseudostratified ciliated. Pseudostratified ciliated. You're adding one more thing, right?
Wait, so not, when it's pseudostratified, it doesn't always have cilia, but when it does,
You call it ciliated. And at this time, it's located in these parts that because if it has the cilia, it will have more function of protection and secretion. Otherwise, it will be secreting only. So if you have cilia in these locations, it will be both protective and secretory. Your exam is Tuesday?
Yeah,
I
Tuesday.
think it's Thursday. It's Thursday.
Tuesday, so we have one more day, right?
Yeah.
We have Thursday.
Thursday also.
Yeah, it's Thursday.
And what time should we finish this? 9:30? Okay, so we're fine.
Wait, so is it Tuesday or Thursday?
Whatever yourselves. I don't even remember. As far as I remember, it's Tuesday. I usually put it Tuesday, the first day of the week.
You got it.
Whatever you have this in this syllabus is right.
Tuesday's Tuesday.
Oh, so Thursday. A long night.
The way you did it was you made it every Thursday.
I like Tuesdays. Tuesday sounds good to me.
No, in the beginning of class, it said Tuesday.
Oh, this coming. Okay. So this coming Thursday. Okay. I have to alternate the exams with the lab exams. It cannot overlap. Okay? Otherwise it will be too hard for you. So let's move a little bit faster.
Yeah. It's rough.
Okay, the next type is glandular epithelium. If it is endocrine, okay, let's move on. Endocrine glands. What are the endocrine glands? It's glands. So it is epithelium, type of epithelium. But it's called endocrine versus exo. What's endo and what's exo?
Endo is in, exo is out.
Yes. So if it secretes something out like this, you have a duct and you have cells like these, and it will secrete something outside, you call it exocrine, means secrete out. If it is like this, you don't have a duct, so it will secrete in. It will go to the blood anyway, in this case, but it will secrete in, no duct. The duct will take it out. If you have a duct, it's exo. If you don't have a duct, it's endo. So exocrine, this is will produce secretions that goes on the surface, okay, like pancreas. Actually, not the island, the enzymes, or stomach, or something like the sweat glands. The sweat glands have ducts, and the ducts will take the secretion to the surface. So you call it exo. If you don't have ducts and it will secrete inside, you call it endocrine. And it will move from the interstitial fluid to the blood. It go to the target organs. But the point to differentiate is, do you have a duct or not? You have a duct. The duct will take the secretion outside. You call it exo. You don't have a duct. Can we continue? If you don't have the duct, it will secrete in. In what? In the interstitial fluid. No duct. So it will just goes like endocrine. From the interstitial fluid, it will go to the blood anyway, and it will move in the blood going to the target organ. Depending on, so glandular, right now we got the glands, right? The glands are for secretion. Okay, secretion can be outside or inside. Okay, now what type of secretion do you secrete? Is it something watery? Secretion, you call it serous. If it is something mucin, which is a little bit thicker, mucus, you call it mucus glands. If it is mixed, both of those together, you call it the mixed glands. Okay? Okay, connective tissue will be the next part, which is connect. There is a basal lamina and it connects over it. And bones are connective tissue, fat connective tissue, blood is connective tissue. They do not have contact to the environment. That's why it's called connective. It's connecting, it's within, it's the filling inside. It's not outside. And the rule, as I mentioned before, is it one of the three? No, it's connective. So depending on the nature, is it solid or is it fluid, the connective tissue? If it is solid, it means it contains a lot of protein fibers. If it is fluid, it means contain ground substance. So you always have some protein and some ground substance. Which one is more? We have different types of connective tissue. Connective tissue proper, and this is just a regular type that connect and protect. Proper means proper, the right, the normal type. Fluid connective tissue is what have matrix more, and this is, since it's fluid, it's the fluid that transmit things. The third type is supportive, and this is to make the tissues stronger. Connective tissue proper itself, it can be loose and it can be dense, depending on the ground substance. So here is how it goes. How much solids and how much liquids or fluids do you have? Fibrous tissue is solid, fibers. Ground substance is fluid. If you have more fibrous tissue, you're solid than ground. If you have more ground, less fibrous tissue, this is loose. So loose versus dense. More ground substance, less fibers, loose. More fibers, less ground substance, dense. Examples, fat is loose, and remember when you push on when you squeeze on the fat or push it, it's easy, right? It's flexible, so it is loose. Versus the tendons, if you look at your tendons, like this tendon here, if you push it, you cannot squeeze it, right? You cannot. Can you change the shape of your tendons if you press on it? You cannot. It's too tough, dense. But the fat, push the fat, it will always move. Easy to move. Now the cells. We have different types of cells. Fibroblast, fibrocyte, macrophage, adipose tissue, mesenchymal cells, melanocyte. This is the most important part of the chapter. Okay? The types of cells and what do you do. This slide is extremely important. Okay? What do you do? Fibroblast versus fibrocyte. I mentioned before that anytime you see blast, know that this is an immature form of a cell. You wanted to change the name, remove blast and put cyte. So you see fibroblast versus fibrocyte. They do different functions. The fibroblast will secrete protein and the cement that attach the cells together, which is called hyaluronate. Fibrocyte, on the other hand, for maintenance. And take it as a rule. Anytime you see something blast versus cyte. Cyte is a mature form of blast. Where? Everywhere. Everywhere. And always. Blast will secrete something, will do the job, and the cytes will modify and maintain. Can you remember this? Blasts make the secretion, cytes maintain and modify. Does it do the job? No, it does not. What does the job is blast. Blast, secrete. Like what make the bone? Fibroblast. What modify and maintain? Osteo. Osteoblast versus osteocyte. So it's always the case. Blast is the one that actually secretes and make. Cyte is always the one that modify and maintain. The two M's. Okay? It will apply every time. Every time you see this, just apply. It will always work. Blast, secrete, and make. Cyte, maintain, modify. So here it's fibroblast versus fibrocytes. Macrophages, these are the big eaters, the large eaters. And if it stay in its spots like this, I'm a macrophage and I'm fixed. I'm staying here. Anything that goes close to me, I will eat it. But I'm not going anywhere. This is called the fixed. If I move around and look for something to eat, this is called the free macrophage. Adipocytes, these are the fat cells, and they have the function is to store fat, storage of fat, and they always have a large fat droplet. So it's always like this, and like the fat droplet is occupying the main part of the cell. Mesenchymal cells, this is another rule. Anytime you see mesenchymal or stem cells, these are the generators of all other cells. Mesenchymal or stem cells, same thing. Mesenchymal cells, stem cells. These are the stem cells that, if you lose the cells, these are the ones that's the grandmother of all cells that will replace your cells. Okay? In the connective tissue proper, again, let me repeat this again. Those two slides, very important. You have to know the function of each cell. Clear enough? So if you're going to ask which type to focus on, I'm already telling you, right? These are the basics. You have to remember that melanocytes make melanin, the dark pigment. You have to remember that mast cells produce the two H's. Mast cells produce the two H's, heparin and histamine. And it does that during inflammation. When you have inflammation, you see the inflamed part, swelling, warm, pain, painful, right? You notice that anytime you're inflamed, this is all because of the mast cells. Secreting histamine, vasodilate, bringing more blood, swelling, and the heparin will prevent coagulation so that the blood comes more. Also remember that the other types that secrete the two H's are the basophils. So if I ask you, which cells make the two H's, histamine and heparin, and give you number 1, mast cells, number 2, basophils, number 3, macrophages, number 4, histiocytes, number 5, both A and B. What's your answer? Both A and B. Both of them secrete the two H's. Lymphocytes, this is for immunity. They are specialized, and there are two different types that we will talk about later on. One type is called the cellular mediated. These are the lymphocytes that fight by themselves. The other ones produce antibodies, and you call it the plasma cells. So they will have to maturate first. Microphages, the small eaters. And it comes from neutrophils, eosinophils. Okay, and what's the difference between macro and micro? Macro are the large eaters, micro are the small eaters. Macro eaters, the large eaters, respond first, they attack first, and then they let the small ones know, and the small ones will come in response to the large ones. So macrophage go and attack first, send the signal to the micro, and the micro will come later to help. The connective tissue fibers can be collagen fibers like tendons and ligament, can be reticular like the surrounding of the spleen, the surrounding of the liver. It can be elastic fibers like the ligaments in between the vertebrae. It can be ground substance like the interstitial fluid, for example. The loose connective tissue like areolar, adipose, and reticular. So elastic is like around the blood vessels, and the adipose tissue, which is called the fat cells. This is important to know what's the difference between white fat and brown fat. White fat is the regular fat that we all know. This is the fat under your skin, right? You gain weight, I have a lot of fat. This is the white fat, the regular fat that store fat for you to use later on and protect you and so on. This is the regular fat. The brown fat is special fat. This is not the normal fat that we all know. You have
Is that
questions?
the one that looks a little yellow? Or is that the white fat?
The white is yellow.
Okay.
Yeah, the white fat it's not really white. It's like off-white or yellowish a little bit. But the brown fat is brown, dark brown. Why? This is a special type. We have a little bit of it. It's not the regular fat. And the function is unique function. Absorb energy. Absorb energy. So the brown will absorb energy. The white, the normal fat. Okay, so it absorbs shock, store the fat for you, and so on. Reticular tissue it's important to remember what are the reticular tissues. So reticular tissues is like liver, spleen, lymph nodes, and bone marrow. So remember, these are the ones that have reticular tissue, which is type of connective tissue. Is the liver, the contents of the liver, is it epithelium or skeletal or neural or connective? Liver, what do you think? Is it covering or lining?
No.
Is it muscle? Is it nervous system? So what are the contents inside? Connective tissue. This is always the rule. Okay. So this picture is showing you the adipose tissue. See how much fat? Yeah, it's yellowish, whitish. So this is the regular ones. The brown will be darker. This is the reticular tissue, which is like the liver and spleen and lymph nodes. The dense, examples of the dense is tendon ligament aponeurosis. And aponeurosis is nothing but tendon that's flat, looks like a sheet. Like if this is your biceps, if you follow the biceps and go down, you can actually feel the tendon here. And it looks like this, round. If it is flat, same thing. It's attachment of the muscle to the bone. So this is attaching your biceps to the bone. This is tendon. If it looks like this. If it looks more like a sheet, flat, we call it aponeurosis. So tendon, aponeurosis, both of them do the same function. Both of them attach the muscle to the bone. What's the difference? Is it cord-like? Is it sheet-like? Cord-like is tendon, sheet-like is aponeurosis. The other type of dense irregular will be the part that contain collagen fibers, like skin, for example. It contain some layers underneath. Perichondrium, which is around the cartilage, periosteum, which is around the bone, and so on. Elastic tissue that contain elastic fibers. So like this is soft elastic. Soft elastic means stretchable, like a rubber band. Like connecting the bones, the vertebrae specifically, not any bones. The fluid part is blood. Blood, the plasma of the blood, isn't it fluid? Right? The plasma, the fluid part, isn't it fluid? Yes. Is it muscles? Is it heart? Is it cardiac muscles? Is it neural? Is it covering or lining? It is epithelium. And because it is fluid, so you call it fluid connective tissue. And this is the plasma part that contain different types of cells. So what's the difference between plasma, interstitial fluid, and lymph? Plasma is the fluid part of the blood. Interstitial is the fluid in between the cells. And the lymph is the extras of the interstitial fluid that return back to the circulation. These are the different types of cells. And the lymph is the extracellular fluid that goes back to the circulation. And it's important for lymph system, lymphatic system. The blood vessels can be arteries, can be veins, or in between will be the capillaries. The supportive type of soft tissue will be, the supportive type of connective can be cartilage, can be bone. The difference is the bone is calcified. So when you have calcium, you call it bone. The cartilage matrix, the matrix of the cartilage, we know the cells, chondrocytes, chondroblasts. But what is the fluid or the matrix? It's proteoglycans from chondroitin sulfate. And if you ever heard about some people having chronic inflammation or having problems in their knee, and they tell them, well, we tried everything, and I want you to go to the nutritional stores, the vitamin stores, and get some chondroitin sulfate. If you ever heard about this bottle that like grandma or parents or something, they can go and it will replace the matrix of your joints. It will take some time, but it is an alternative if there is no medication. Like chronic pain, knee pain, what's the solution? Take some painkillers. Yes, beside what? I take the painkillers all the time. It's not improving. Take chondroitin sulfate, and this will improve the matrix. The cells itself are called chondrocytes. Bone The outside of the cartilage is called the pericardium, the perichondrium. There are different types of cartilage. Hyaline cartilage, this is the stiff one. And it's important to remember where is it located. Like synovial joints in the ribs, sternum, trachea. This is the strong one, it's everywhere. The elastic one is like your external ears. An epiglottis, like this. Okay. So this is the elastic type. The fibrous type, it is in between. It's not soft, it's not hard. It's something in between. So this is like the pads of the knee, in between the two bones in the joint, and so on. So it is medium. It's not very strong, it's not very soft. It's there to limit the movement only. So location is important. Location is important. This is how I can ask you about this. Location. Where is the hyaline? Where is the elastic? Where is the fibrous? So this is the elastic. You can move it around. Okay. The other ones that within the bones is something that you cannot move. So it's hyaline. This is fibrous, which is medium. And this is in between the vertebrae. So this is a location. When we come to the bone is calcified connective tissue. It's connective tissue that have calcium. Anytime you hear calcium that's added to something, it will make it hard. And this is why the bone is hard. The bone cells are called osteocytes. Osteo means bone. Cytes means mature cells. Periosteum is the outer side and endosteum is the inner side. This is just a comparison between the cartilage and bone. It's important to go to it. It's just summarizing the difference. And one of the important thing is what type of cells? Chondrocytes versus osteocytes. That's one. The other thing is the cartilage does not contain blood vessels. This is important. Does not contain blood vessels. The bone does. The bones does contain blood vessels. The cartilage does not. There is no blood vessels in between the cartilage tissues. How do you get the nutrition then? From the surrounding tissues. Membranes are physical barriers, and it is epithelium supported by connective. It can be mucus, like the passageways. It can be serous, like lining the cavities that's not open to the outside. So this is the main difference, and this is important. Mucus versus serous. What's the difference? Mucus line passageways that's open to the outside, like this. Okay? This is mucus. Everything here is mucus. As long as you have an exit to the environment, whether we're talking about from anything from the mouth to the anus and anything in between, this is all exposed or have an opening to the outside. So this is all mucus. Serous is the one that does not have an outlet, does not have any contact with the outside. And this is something like the surrounding of your lung, for example. That would be serous. Cutaneous is the skin, and synovial membrane is the membrane surrounding your joints. This is mucus. This one secrete mucus. This is serous. Now the skin itself will, or the connective tissue surrounding will have the skin, superficial fascia, deep fascia, and fat underneath. And we will cover that in the next chapter more. The main difference between the different types of muscles: skeletal, cardiac, smooth. Which one is voluntary of the three? Skeletal. What else is different? The cardiac muscles have pacemaker. And this is what make it involuntary. They have a pacemaker. Do you know the pacemaker of the heart? The SA node? This is like a battery that's working for the entire life. Just submit electrical signal, like 70 or 80 times. So this is one of the main characters of the cardiac tissue. And it is branched, it looks like branched. Smooth muscles is any other muscles. Just for your information, same thing as we said on the connective tissue, how to know that these muscles are smooth. Anything, any muscle that's not attached to the bone and not in your heart, smooth. You name it, okay? This is the rule. So smooth muscles everywhere else. How about the blood vessels? Yes, smooth. Stomach, smooth, right? Intestine, smooth. Bronchi, smooth. Just ask yourself, is it in the heart? No. Is it attached to the bone? No. Smooth. By exclusion. So this is a skeletal muscle. It's not branched as you see. It goes like parallel to the skeletal. Look at this, how branched it is. Look, like this. Branch, branch. So the heart is branched. The cardiac muscles are branched. Smooth muscles are irregular. It's not parallel. It's not branching. It's irregular, like scattered, like what you see right now. Neural tissue. Every part of what we're talking about right now will be covered extensively in next chapters. Okay? So this is the general knowledge about each one of those, but this is what we're going to do later on. Bone, muscle, nervous system. This is all that we're going to do later on. So then the neural tissue or the nerve tissue, the central nervous system, the part of the nervous system at the center, and peripheral nervous system is a part of the nervous system outside, not on the center. And the center is brain, which is inside what? Where is your brain? Inside what bone? Skull. And about the spinal cord inside? Vertebral column. So this is the central part. The peripheral part will be the outside part. The neuron is the actual nerve cell. Neuroglia are other cells in the nervous system that are supportive. Are we following? And again, we will discuss that in details, but let's just understand the basics. Okay? So neuron and neuroglia. Neurons are the actual nerve cell. Neuroglia. Glia means fibers. These are the helpers. Does it connect electricity? Does it transmit any information? No, 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 none of those. Why do you have the neuroglia? These are the servants. They are helpers, supportive. They just help to repair and maintain the neurons. And generally speaking, the neuron consists of body, dendritus, and axon. So if you look at this picture here, this is called the body. These branches coming off, or coming to actually, the body, these are called dendritus. And this one extension going away, that will be the axon, right? Dendritus, body, axon. Okay, so we talked about the different types of tissues. If you have an injury of any one of these tissues, you will need to repair them and maintain them, and this is called homeostasis. If you have a problem, what do? I do inflammation first and then regeneration. Okay, the inflammation is what we're all familiar with. And I think all of us got some inflammation sometime, right? Some inflammation. What do you notice in the inflammation? Color? Red? Is it warmer or
Warm.
warmer? What else?
It grows in
Solid.
size, it's
Swollen and painful?
Coloration?
It's dark, yes. But is it painful? Right?
Yeah.
So these are the characteristics of inflammation. So you get inflamed first, and then you regenerate. Means you replace the injured part. So anytime if I ask you, or you should remember, the cardinal signs of inflammation, the important signs of inflammation, remember the last time that you had inflammation. Red, swollen, warm, painful, right? Make sense? What can cause inflammation? Maybe a pathogen, like bacteria or something invaded your skin, like acne, something like that. Or maybe you got injured. So it can be trauma, physical injury, or infection. The chemical signals that help to produce the inflammation are prostaglandin, some proteins, and potassium ions. Lysosomes. We talked about this in the organelles. Lysosomes. These are the somes, mean the bodies that cause lysis. They contain enzymes that's going to lyse, and the destruction is called necrosis. Mast cells. What are the secretions of mast cells? Anybody?
Histamine, heparin.
Yes, the two H's. Which is the other cell beside mast cell that produce the two H's?
Basophils.
Basophils. Don't forget this. So when you get injured, you will have dilation of the blood vessels, and that's what make it swollen. Plasma will diffuse, going to the part that will cause the swelling and pain. And then phagocytes will go around, eat any unnecessary thing, whatever it is, pathogens or destroyed cells. So this is how the process goes. And then you regenerate again. After you subside, you clean up everything, and then you regenerate. Fibrocytes, these are the fibrocytes, the cells that produce fibrous tissue. What type of fibrous tissue? Collagen. And it can make a scar. And the replacement of the cells that died will come from mesenchymal stem cells. And as we mentioned before, not all cells regenerate. What happened in aging? Take it as a rule. Everywhere, 233, 234, anywhere, aging, everything deteriorates. So if I ask you the repair, is it the same or take more time? Delayed. Which one is bad? Delayed. The bone, is it strong or weak? Weak. Cartilage, strong or weak? Weak. Right? Everything, hormones, is it secreted the same or less? Which one is bad? Less. So this is how it always goes. Skin become thinner and weaker or stay as it is? Thinner and weaker. The bone, for example, it can be easily break. We always hear about grandma falling down just a little bit of an accident and she got pelvic fracture, for example. So the bones are really easy to be broken down. Cardiovascular disease. Cancer will be even more with age. It is the second cause of death in the U.S. Okay, and the reason why it's increasing is because the pollution that's happening everywhere from chemicals and cigarettes. And unfortunately, they say that 1 in every 4, so it's like 25%, have a chance of developing cancer. And that's it for this chapter.